Alright, in this video we're going to cover the drawing creation for the top view of a street style skateboard deck. I also have another video for a cruiser style skateboard deck, so you can kind of compare and watch each one depending on which style board you'd like to make. It's important to look at our reference drawing, our draft drawing, when we create this. As you can see, this is my quick sketch of, normally I draw this by hand, but since I'm recording this, I wanted to show it on the computer. So this is very, very sloppy. Hopefully your hand drawing's a little bit neater, but as long as you can read it and understand it, that's really all that matters for that first sketch. So there's a couple dimensions here. I have an 8-inch width. I have a 14-inch wheelbase. I have a 6.75-inch tail and a 7-inch nose. Those are pretty much the only dimensions we're going to need for making our top view. So to create this, the first thing I'm going to do is create a box that is the width and length of our of my skateboard. And you might notice we don't have a specific length that's shown. So this is not a problem because the only thing that's missing is the distance between these two bolt holes, and that is going to be 2.125. So I'm going to draw a little arrow in here. 2.125. And then I'm going to pull up a calculator and add up 6.75 plus 2.125 plus 14 plus another 2.125 for the other distance between my bolt holes, and finally 7, and it is a very nice number. It is 32 inches long. I'm going to write that down, 32 inches. So our board is going to be, our rectangle is going to be 32 by 8 inches. Next, I'm going to draw two lines, one that cuts it in half, this direction. And actually, I'm only going to draw that one line. I'm not going to draw the second line just yet. So the next thing I'm going to do is draw my kicktail, or not my kicktail, sorry. I'm going to draw my nose and my tail line. And I have a little T here on the left indicating that my tail is the left side of the board. And I have an N here on the right indicating that this side is the nose. So if I have a rectangle around this whole thing, I'm going to make a line 6.75 inches away from the left side and 7 inches from the right side. So if you notice, the way I got a point that was 6.75 inches away is I drew a line, which I'll later delete, that happened to get me from this point to the point I needed to be at. So I can just click here and delete. Now the other cool thing that we can do is we only have to worry about drawing half of our skateboard. So from this point, I'm just going to draw in the top half of the large first rectangle I drew, and then later on, once we're done, we're going to mirror it across that middle line I drew, this line. Let me go ahead and place my bolt holes now. For this, I'm going to draw some lines, and all these lines I'm drawing that are going to later be deleted, I'll refer to this as reference geometry because it's basically geometry we create in order to create the features we really care about. And I forgot what the width was, so I have to go and look that. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, it's 1.62. So the width that we're going to be coming up here of our wheelbase, I haven't drawn that on here either, but we happen to know that from the top set of bolt holes to the bottom set of bolt holes is 1.625. So in order to make this feature, we need to then divide that. So 1.625 divided by 2, so we have to half it because our line's going to be, we're going to be coming from the midpoint of those two bolt holes, 0.8125. So we're going to come 0.8125 up. And, oops, so I forgot to put the little @ sign, so we went off to the absolute coordinate, not the relative coordinate. Alright, and again, if it's not clear why we didn't go up 1.625 here right now, you'll see that later, that when we mirror the board, there's going to be another 0.8125 gap, and when we add those two 0.8125 distances together, we get the 1.625 that we're really looking for. I'm going to go over 2.125. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I can position my bolt holes now. These are each 3/16 of an inch in diameter. Oops. And another quick thing we could do is copy paste. So you might not have seen that trick yet. If we just type in copy and I have my item I'd like to copy selected, hit enter. You specify where you're copying it from and where you're going to copy it to. So if I click as the center of my circle as the start point, it's going to basically drag my circle from the center point, and I can position it at these 2 points. And then hit escape. Next, I can delete the reference geometry that I originally had there. So all these little lines. And next we just have to make our curves. So just the curved portion of our board, and I'm going to use the spline tool for this. The other important thing is to decide where you want this curve to start and end. It's definitely going to start or end at the point right here, at the midpoint of the left side and the midpoint of the right side for each of our curves. But the key is, where do we want this curve to start? And for my case, I'm going to start my curve actually in line with this, with the outer bolt hole in each scenario here. Sometimes you might want to bring the curve in further or have a shorter, more compressed curve. But for right now, I think that putting it at the nose and tail length would be a great spot. So I'm going to put it here to start. I'm going to take off my snap, and I'm going to put down 3 points. And I'm going to change these in a little bit. And I'm going to turn my snap back on and get back to this significant point. I am going to hit enter to start the tangency. And again, if you don't remember how the spline tool works, you could watch the video about creating splines and get some more practice with that before you start making the end of your board. And the start tangency is going to be along the x-axis and or sorry, not the x-axis, but the horizontal plane there. And then this is going to be along the vertical axis from this point. So that actually doesn't look like that bad of a shape. Play around with it a little bit. And again, turn off the snap to play around with it. Alright, let's start with that. Now I'm going to make another spline on the other side. And again, we're just making half of the spline because we're going to mirror this geometry onto the other half of the rectangle. And I'm going to follow the same tangencies, both horizontal and vertical. Alright, that looks, let me adjust this one more a little bit. Alright, that looks good enough for now for this example. So what we can do is select, first let's clean it up and get rid of some of this geometry. So I can delete a bunch of things by clicking and forming a box, one of these selection boxes, coming from the right to the left, and that forms that green box. Notice if I go the other direction it turns blue. Anything that touches this green box or is inside of it will get deleted. The blue is anything that's completely enclosed in the box gets deleted. So this is just going to select all the lines that pass through this, which I can delete. And it deleted part of our board. I'll just create a new line to replace that missing line. And now I can create a box that will select everything, and then I'm going to deselect this horizontal line. The way I do that is I hold down Shift and click on that line. That will deselect it. I'm going to type in mirror. There's also a little icon off to the side here on the right side for mirroring. I'm used to typing this in. Hit enter, and it's going to ask us to define our mirror axis. So the axis is defined by a line that we create, and that line happens to be this horizontal line. So we just choose the start point and the end point of that line. So I click on the start point first, and then again, if you look at the command window, it prompts me to specify the end point. So I'm going to select the end point of that line. Delete source entities is what it's asking me in the command window. I do not want to delete the original thing I selected. If I did that, I would just be left with the other half. So I want to keep both halves to make it a whole. So I'm going to type N for no, because N is underlined in that specify yes or no prompt. And I can delete this, and I have my board. And that's it. If your board is fully symmetrical, so not just symmetrical from top to bottom, but also side to side, where your nose and your tail are the same, you could actually get away with just making half of your board, with just a quarter of your board, and mirroring it first about the horizontal axis, and then mirroring it again about a vertical axis. But that's really it. So good luck with designing your board.